Alright, hello everybody. My name is Ren, aka Vincent. Today is From Fanfiction to Novels, how to transition from fanfiction to original writing. And here is my co-host, GaryOak. And we are both fanfiction authors. We do stuff. And we're just, sometimes. But yeah, today we are basically going to be talking about how do you transition from original fanfiction writing to original writing? Why can you start, or why should you start from fanfiction, and why should you start from original, or why should you start from original, and how you can apply skills you learned in fanfiction writing to original writing. Now, if I start to lag, because I think apparently my first time streaming this, let me know in the Discord, because my view of the flank stage on my browser is utterly not updating very well. So yeah. If I lag out to hell, just let us know. Ping us and let us know. And we'll see if we can compensate. But hopefully you can hear us loud and clear. Hopefully. Cools. Right. So, Gary, why'd you introduce yourself? Oh boy. Uh-oh. That's weird. What if I audio mixer? Yeah, this is weird. Well, that ain't good. He's saying, yeah, this is getting better. Okay, properties. I'm gonna check on my audio mix, my advanced audio mixer properties. Desktop audio active. Desktop audio is active. I'm not getting it from desktop though. Monitor off, operating offset. Bloody hell! Of course we had end up with the audio issue. Sheesh. I think it's because they didn't hear you speak. They heard me speak.
To enable broadcasting so you can
what about this? Say something.
Hear everything, I guess. Testing? Hello?
Testing.
GaryOak here?
Try something.
I tried saying something. Oh, I think people can hear me now.
They can. I can't.
Test again?
Oh no,
Oh, they hear me.
Oh, well, that's what happened. Basically, what happened is that you have to turn on the desktop and the mic aux. Yeah, this is my first time using OBS to stream, so I didn't turn on the freaking mic. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, turns out you didn't hear a single thing that Gary said. Oh wow.
I said a bunch of stuff and no one heard me.
Okay,
so
let's
my name is
again,
also known as GaryOak from Fanfiction.net. I'll try and keep it fast because we just wasted a bunch of time.
We have an hour afterwards.
You know, we did test earlier, guys, I swear, and it worked fine, but a hamster died, I guess. So, I've been writing on Fanfiction since about 2012. I started writing in 2011, actually. I didn't register till 2012, though, for whatever reason. My first story was called Repercussions. I wrote that in 2012, 2013, and it shows, believe me. I've written several other pieces of fiction since then, including a story called A Feather in Her Cap that's kind of like a cute little episode-style piece of fanfic that the actual Scootaloo read because it was about Scootaloo, and she ended up liking it. I swear I'm not making this up. I think one of my more successful stories is a comedy called Twilight Sparkle's Not So Secret chipfic folder. I kind of captured the zeitgeist and wrote that right when the card game came out. Turned out pretty well, a couple thousand words. Basically, my specialities are comedy and epics, which is kind of like two opposite ends of the spectrum, where I write something really long and something not so long. I don't know. It's really weird. But yeah, that's mostly about me. I'm a creative writing student at Vancouver Island University in a... Well, Vince just posted my Fanfic profile. That's me. Yeah, and in 4 months, I'll no longer be a student. I'll be a graduate with a bachelor's in writing, whatever that means. I still don't know what I'm doing, though. Maybe I shouldn't have said that in front of a panel audience about writing.
Well, to be fair, you have done pretty well for yourself, to be honest. So, and normally Gary's the one who hosts these panels, or Vancouver and Burlington. But yeah, so actually, so he's much more experienced with the con thing than I am, to be honest. So yeah, do you have anything else to say, Gary?
No, it's time for you to introduce yourself, my friend.
Okay, my name is Vren. Here's my profile pic, and so my claim to fame is writing the story Princess Celestia, the Changing Queen, which was basically during the height of, the whole... Basically, in fanfic, we have these periods, and this was when you can run anywhere without running into a changing fanfic. And so during the height of all this, I turned Celestia into a changeling, and had her revealed during the Canterlot wedding. And for some reason, about 3,000 people decided to say, "Oh, we like this story," and yeah, that's my claim to fame. I wrote Princess Celestia, Changing Queen, very original, I know, and I wrote a sequel to it. And so my specialty, if you ever decide to look at the word count for those stories, is very, very long adventure epics with drama. And so that whole series, including all 3 entries of it, and not including supplemental materials and side stories, would have been about 400,000 words, more likely. Yeah, about 400,000 words, which I started in 2012, and so my writing very slowly improved from them. I have actually since moved on to writing original fiction, web serialized original fiction, and so this, where the idea for this channel came. I realized that I have this experience of writing fanfic, and then jumping in from fanfiction into original fiction very soon after. And so I decided to say, hey, let's talk a little bit about what I learned and show you all like some tricks. Personal life, some personal tidbits. I'm a Vancouver native. I work for the government as a clerk. Yeah, I work for the government as a clerk. I've always loved history. I have a master's in history. That's where the history degree went to. Clerk for the government. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, in my free time, I like to write. I just like to write. So, the goals for this panel today, we are going to be talking about a couple of things. There will be a Q&A at the end. We hopefully will be about 30 minutes to 20 minutes. It's where we'll talk about other stuff. But basically, we're going to be talking about primarily or where should you start, original fiction or fan fiction? What are the benefits of both? And then talk about how fan fiction some fan fiction techniques can apply to original fiction. And then how do you start, writing original fiction after you've been publishing fanfics for a while. So, this fic is pretty much for everybody. So if you're advanced or junior writer, I feel like this is a very useful panel. And yeah, so for the first topic, we're going to start with the question. Why start with original fiction?
I don't know why.
Well, that's an excellent question. So, but the examples I have right now. So, why should you start with original fiction? Did we lag out Gary for a sec?
What's up?
Did we lag out for a sec, Gary?
I'm fine.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so basically, in original fiction, you have the advantage of you can actually monetize your work if you're good at what you do. Example, if you decide to write self-publishing, you can monetize your work. If you decide to write a web serial, basically a fic that is published online as a serial in serial format, which is like chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter, you can monetize that by using Patreon and saying, "Oh, hey, get some advanced chapters," and so you can monetize your original work. You can also practice forming your own stories. Forming your own ideas about stories directly, and like in my view, writing fanfiction is kind of like a practice run before you're writing original work. And if you start with original fiction and do well of it, and if that's you can actually do at it, do writing original fiction, just go original. Original fiction also has you have complete control over your income due to Patreon, book sales, and it has a lot of benefits because if you start writing original ideas, you don't have to worry about like filing off the serial numbers, which we'll get back to later. But filing off the serial numbers means basically turning a fanfic, filing off everything that makes it a fanfic, and then using it as an original idea. So yeah, there are actually advantages to starting with original fiction. There are also disadvantages.
Of course.
But
one advantage I want to say though is that you're never feeling trapped by the universe, because sometimes when you really want to get creative with the universe, sometimes you're like, I don't know if I can really do that without bending things a lot, just because it's so antithetical to the universe that you're writing in that it might be really hard to kind of not create a disconnect by saying, oh, I want Celestia to do X. Yeah. When people who've watched series will be like, Celestia would never in a million years do X, and it's really hard to make her do X, but if it's an original character who has a lot of similar traits to Celestia, then it's very easy to make that jump, because you can say, oh, she was like this in her past, so it makes sense that she does this now. Whereas with Celestia, it's a bit harder to shoehorn in there.
Yep. So yeah, there are actual advantages to writing original fiction. But of course, we're talking about why would you go from fanfiction to original writing. So at least Gary and I seem to share the opinion that we definitely think starting with fanfiction is actually a better idea for many writers. And here's why. And mind you, I will, I forgot to discuss this with you, Gary, but I think I'm happy to make the notes public after. Would you like that? Are you okay with that?
Oh, I'm fine. I normally, honestly, at conventions, one thing I do is sometimes late at night, when I'm not quite myself anymore, I am just like, hey, does anyone want a copy of my outline for this panel? And sometimes I just sort of give it away as a fanfic souvenir or a convention souvenir.
So yeah, we'll be we'll make the notes of this panel public after the panel. We'll just post a link in there and just let you have at it, and also probably on our Fanfiction profiles too if we have time. So yeah. Anyway, why start with fanfiction? Typically, basically in a fanfic, in a fandom, you have a more active audience. And it's much easier to get feedback. So yeah, that's one of the major things you can do with a fanfic. With fanfics, you can get a lot more feedback than writing original fiction. There are also lower standards for writing fanfic. Like, I don't mean that you can just write whatever self-insert character into your fanfic, but because people are viewing you could, but you could actually. But the idea is that people are viewing it as you're writing a fanfic, they're more willing to let you publish your stuff without critiquing just going for the throat and just saying you suck. Though they do that, even if you're writing fanfics. But the idea being that writing a fanfic sort of allows you to take certain liberties, and it's just a good way to get more useful feedback. Tony, what else?
Yeah, exactly. I've heard many cases of where original fiction authors are quite jealous, actually, of fanfics, where they're saying, I really wish I had all this built-in audience and this feedback that I can just sort of get. And when writing original fiction, that just doesn't happen. And the fanfic community is actually probably the best fanfic community on the internet, because there are a lot of extremely, extremely high-caliber writers there. There's people who write professionally, people with bachelor's and master's degrees in creative writing. Mm-hmm. The writing community is very strong. At BronyCon, I was always part of the writer dinners, and they had to cap that at 60 people, just to give you an idea of how large it is. Mm-hmm. I'd always attend room parties with just writers, and I basically didn't really associate with too many other people at BronyCon. I was always with writers, and there were tons and tons of them. Mm-hmm. And it's a very positive, Fanfiction's a very positive place with a lot of very high-level feedback, and it's absolutely a fantastic place to get into writing. Mm-hmm.
Part of this is the mod team.
That's what I did.
Yeah, the part of this is the mod team, I would say. They're very, if you ever decide to start writing fanfiction, the mod team is great. WandererD, who I'm more acquainted with is one of the mods, and he's written these awesome. I remember because when I was a writer before I actually made my little famous bit, I read his what not to do in writing fanfic blogs, which were just hilarious and very educational. And so you have a really good writing community, and so yeah, in fandoms like Fanfiction, doesn't have to be Fanfiction, but for the intents of this panel, we're talking about Fanfiction. It's just a great community to get feedback from. Yeah.
WandererD. I also echo how great of a guy WandererD is. He's one of the people I was referring to. He's actually one of the guys who does have a master's degree in, I believe it's children's literature, I want to say. Very accomplished writer, very great guy. I've met him. I make a point of seeing him every time I go to BronyCon, or did back when BronyCon was a convention. RIP. But yeah, he is fantastic.
Gone? Sorry, someone said we're gone.
Gone?
What does that mean?
Are we gone?
Like, are we gone? What's going on?
I'm gone?
So you have a really good writing community, and so yeah.
Figure I may as well just double check here with chat before we get too into the weeds.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the only problem with online panels is you don't know when your feed just dies or when Discord decides to, bug out and lag you really poorly.
Yeah,
okay. Apparently we're fine. It was a hiccup. Okay.
Yeah.
The next point is that a lot of what Vince said about Patreon and having control, a lot of that's actually true with fanfiction. While you're not allowed to, say, write a book about Twilight Sparkle and sell it for money, what you can do is you can have somebody hire you to write a book about Twilight Sparkle, pay you $10-15 per 1,000 words, which is about standard going rate for new writers or people who are new at taking commissions, and then you can sell that service, the service of writing, but as long as the writing itself is publicly available. And you can also do the Patreon route and all this sort of thing. And if you're prolific enough and if enough people like you, then you're able to make a pretty decent amount of money.
Yeah, that's what Gary said. But the reason why I mentioned that point about original writing having the ability to control everything is because this is sort of a once in a million, and I'm going to use this term frequently, unicorn events, where fan projects were just hit by, copyright strikes and cease this or we'll freaking lawsuit your ass. And having that risk, doing that is a risk. Like, there is a risk. It's a small risk. It's actually minute. I've very rarely seen, I have actually. I've rarely seen, a fanfic get hit by this. I've never heard of that. Yeah, I never heard of that, but I have seen other fan projects in the Brony community get hit with cease and desist.
You're thinking of Fighting is Magic.
Yeah.
Fighting is, I don't think it applies as much to writing, honestly.
It doesn't. I don't think it does, but just letting you know that I think Gary's 100% right. Yeah. But there is a risk if you decide just stick.
Disclaimer: I'm not a lawyer.
So yeah,
I don't go to law school. I don't have exact proof of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and neither do I. This is just what we've heard in the fandom after being in for oh my god, how I started in 2012. Jesus Christ, yeah. I started in 2012. You?
I started writing my first story in 2011, so it's been almost 10 years since I first decided to become a writer.
Mamma mia. Yeah.
And here I am looking back at almost being done with a writing degree. Oh my goodness.
God. Yeah, my goodness indeed.
I'm old.
We are old. Oh my god, my story is almost 10 years old. Anyway, that was a trip down memory lane. Sorry about that. But yeah. So on that note though, and I'm gonna say this right now for the sake of this is I'm gonna be dismissing a number of myths about fanfiction writing and self-publishing and stuff like that. But one of the myths I have to first dismiss is if you are planning to get into fanfiction to build an audience so that you can move it over to your original fiction, don't try it. It's not a thing. I know this because I had a pretty decent fanfiction audience, and I know almost none of my original Brony readers followed me over to my original serial. When you it can happen, and I can bet that maybe there'll be a few more people who will click on my serial and check it out later on because I still have the links, to my stories. But I have not heard of any of my original fans from my Princess Celestia of the Chain and Queen days actually picking up my original serial because I wrote it. So yeah, don't get into fan fiction expecting to make it big and then move over to original writing. That I don't think that's actually going to happen. I don't think that's actually a thing. Okay?
And,
so yeah.
Yeah, and to be clear, there's no absolutes in writing other than if it works, it works. Mm-hmm. But generally when we say like, oh, this is how it is or this is how that is, that applies to the majority of cases. And you can find an exception to absolutely everything that we say about anything.
Oh yeah, you can.
Writing is an art, and art is very subjective, and to quote the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, truth is subjectivity.
Mm-hmm. If it works, it works. Now, we're going to move on to topic 2. I think we're pretty good on time, actually. So topic 2, we're going to be talking about... So, think about this. I just mentioned that you can't make it big in fan fiction and then bring your audience over to original fiction. Yeah, but fan fiction has some things that it can teach a writer, and here are the key takeaways. The first we're going to talk about is characterization. And fanfiction is writing fanfiction, the process and the exercise of which is very good at teaching the writer how to characterize properly. It's a key skill. Writing good fanfiction is basically you observe how your characters act, what makes good characters, and then reproducing them in your own words. It's a highly important skill in original writing. Gary?
A lot of that comes from reverse engineering, and it doesn't necessarily automatically make you extremely good at characterization, because I failed to mention this in my introduction, but I have several works that I haven't actually published anywhere, including Fimfiction, one of which was a young adult original manuscript that's about 67,000 words. So it's around the length of the first Harry Potter book, or between that and the first and second. It's a book. And one problem that the draft has, and one reason why I haven't shipped it off to, or tried shipping it around to publishers and agents, is that I just wasn't good enough at characterization back when I wrote it in 2014. I just didn't have that skill, even though I had an entire 151,000 word fanfic under my belt, because I was so spoiled by all the prefabricated universe and characters and settings that I got to play with. I hadn't really designed many of my own characters, and it showed, and I really needed to hone that skill. So just beware, and if you do write a lot of fan fiction and you're only using canon characters, pay very close attention to how you can specifically reverse engineer these. Because if you don't, then you'll be like me and sort of realize you don't know what you're doing when it's time to write all original characters.
So yeah, one thing I like to try to do with a lot of my stories is try to put characters in situations, and I think this is why I made the transition to web serializing fairly okay, was because I used a lot of characters, I put them in situations that the canon just would never put them into, and then I create more canon to fit my story's canon, which end up turning this whole thing into a massive alternate universe, which works, and therefore I learned a lot more about world building, characterization that way. But at the same time, you do really have to be careful. You can't just insert Twilight Sparkle into your story, rub out the name, and expect her to act exactly the same as you expect her to act, because it's in your original story. She's not gonna act the same way as she normally acts.
Yep.
One thing that I also learned, and Gary, we can also return. Actually, Gary, do you want to actually make your point about fanfiction just having to set up your cast first before I move on?
Sure. This is another thing that I haven't published yet, but about 4 years ago, it was on the last day of BronyCon, I believe it was the last day ever of BronyCon. I finally decided to write a story which was a epic where reindeer Vikings are invading Equestria, and sort of go from there. And that story ended up being about 50% original and 50% fanfic, as in for every canon character I used, there was a original character either on the reindeer side or the pony side who was completely of my own design. And this is a real test, because I even made my own continent, my own belief system, absolutely everything for this other culture of creatures. And I had to make several original pony characters, like the Mayor of Van Hoover, for instance. The litmus test here is to sort of say, okay, I'm going to make an original character, see if he can blend in with a crowd of canon characters, and if he's more or less indistinguishable, then you've done a good job. And that's kind of a cool thing for injecting it in there. So I would say the story's about half original and half fan characters, and if you're wondering where can I find it, it's a completed first draft. It's over 1,000 pages. It's 360,000 words. It's a mammoth George R.R. Martin size book, but it needs a rewrite, and it has several flaws. But that's one thing I really did learn about writing original characters. And it's almost a transition piece for me as I sort of pivot from writing fan fiction to original fiction.
Mm-hmm. You can also, that is to say that you can't, well, like, I'm trying to talk about, like, my own personal example here, that when I had a slightly very different route from Gary's. When I was writing fanfic, I tend to, like, sort of... Let's just talk about Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen. So when I turned Celestia into a changeling, I made it so that she was a changeling for the last 1,000 years, since Nightmare Mirror's first attempt, to overthrow Celestia. With the excuse, with the canon justification being that Celestia got too badly hurt, but at the same time, she found Alternia, my sort of OC/is canon character replacement. It's a little weird, but basically by characterizing her and figure out how to characterize her, I found, like, what people liked about how I characterized her, what people didn't like, what language did I use that seemed to get people emotional. And ironically enough, when I was writing my original work, my original work is called current original work is called A Fractured Song, which is about... Anyway, when I was writing my original work, I also had another female protagonist. Her name is Frances, and she's an abused kid by a kid abused by her parents, and she gets isekai'd, transported to another world, to a fantasy world. Except she's fighting the Demon King, not because she wants to go back home, but so that the system, after it, you completed your mission, you defeated Demon King, so that she wants to make it so the system would allow her to stay in the fantasy world where she doesn't have abusive parents. And so how when I was writing, like, my new original character, I actually looked at what I actually used to write for Princess Celestia Changing Queen and went, okay, people really reacted well to this angst or this drama or this cry scene. They really liked it when I used this language, or when I got into their heads, when I got into my character's head at this time, and when I actually used dialogue here. And so one thing I did when I was writing my original fic was actually reread some of my old fanfics and see how people reacted. And this is when the feedback thing plays into mind. You can get a very good idea of what style use and how best to characterize a character so that people, feel stuff. Tony?
This is why I really like feedback of all kinds. Whenever people read one of my stories, it's like, if you comment, that's great. Even if you say, oh, I liked it, or you quote a line and you say, this is funny, or, oh, what is this, or I hated this, or whatever. Like, all of it's extremely helpful. And sometimes I'll even write lines where I'm like, I really hope people react to this exact line. And when people do, I'm just like wiggling on my chair and going like, I got a reaction. But the main point I was going to make here is that further developing an existing fanfic character can be a really useful exercise. As in, like, you're developing Twilight Sparkle and she goes through this other character arc or something, and it's a good exercise because people reading your story are going to be reading about Twilight and they care about her and they're going to provide feedback. So if you do something that just is incongruent with your character and isn't fitting to the situation of your story, then people are going to jump down your throat for that. And that's really good to have, because they'll call you out on your BS, and you need to be able to develop characters properly. Even if it's original characters, if you screw up your character development, then it's going to lead to an unsatisfactory conclusion of your novel. And seeing if you can make characters go through a radical development stage is kind of cool. And it's definitely a good exercise, because if your general audience is on board with it, then you're probably doing something right. If the vast majority of people, regardless of their qualifications or whatever, because, like, again, you're writing your story for a reader, right? Like, the reader comes first. It's for them. Stephen King once said, you write your first draft with the door closed because that draft is for you. But then when you write your second draft, you write with your door open because you're writing it for the world and not yourself. You're writing it for your ideal reader.
So yeah, that's about characterization. We're going to talk about another thing called, we're pretty good on time actually, plotting and planning. So, we might have to speed this up a little bit. But anyway, fanfiction is basically known for one-shots. But because here's the thing, you have pre-existing characters in the fanfiction world, like My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Friendship is Magic fanfiction can be an excellent place to basically practice how you plot and plan your stories with the characters you're given. Like, honestly, I mostly learned to do my story plotting by writing fanfiction. I had done original writing before I started writing fanfiction a lot, but I never really completed anything. Like, I had all these ideas,
same.
but I never had anything, like, completed. When I had fanfiction to write and readers to get back to, because, oh my god, they're demanding for the next update, I had all these characters in all this world, and I can just tell a unique story. Well, at least an original story in this someone else's world. And so basically, the advantage of fanfiction is that you can take characters from another person's work and then use them as building blocks, which is a good way to, practice your planning, practice your plotting, practice the writing of your story. This
lends well to the MLP universe itself, where most episodes are these really short slice of life things that take place inside a greater universe. And with fanfiction, you don't have to worry about establishing characters. Like, you don't have to tell me what Applejack looks like at the start of your fanfic, because when you're introducing her, because you don't need to, because your audience knows this, and you can write with this pre-existing knowledge in mind. And that doesn't apply to original fiction, so it kind of lets you sort of shortcut, and it's very conducive to these slice of life stories. And I, too, learned a lot of these essential skills, like plotting and planning, from that. Like, the unpublished Viking fic has, I think, 10 concurrent viewpoints at the height of the novel's size, like in the middle of the second act. As in, there's 10 different characters doing different things, all in their own narrative in different parts of Equestria, and they're all intertwined. And I had to plot all of that. It took a long time.
Yeah, but at the same time, we all have that, like, when we were fanfiction writers, we all sort of had that safety net of, we are using someone else's plot. And it's you, and this helps because you don't have to think of everything. You can just think of the plotting, instead of having to, like, okay, how do I come up with this original character? Blah, blah, blah. No, you already have Applejack. You have Princess Celestia. Well, in my case, it was Princess Celestia, Chrysalis, and Luna. So, like, when I was writing my fanfiction, the whole story that I wrote, like, the whole Princess Celestia, the Chain of Queen story, stemmed from one night I had this idea. What if Celestia was a Changing Queen? Okay, so let's see the logical progression of events of if she's a Changing Queen. So, okay, she's a Changing Queen. What if she gets found out? Okay, so how would she get found out? Oh, wait, Chrysalis attacks Cadence and Shining Armor's wedding. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean that Celestia gets revealed, right? Yes, no, Celestia does not get revealed as a Changeling. But then Shining Armor and Cadence blow up, like, love bomb the entire Canterlot Palace. Oh, wait a second.
It's an AoE attack. It hits everyone.
Yeah. So basically, when you start, from there on, the whole story was basically, you have this idea. I had this idea. I changed one big thing about it, and then I made, like, a logical progression of da 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 da. And then, but here's the thing, fanfiction is, because writing is flexible, and fanfiction can be extremely creative. I thought, okay, so what if, that's the logical progression. Celestia gets find out, we get the reaction from all their friends. But how does Celestia become a Changing Queen in the first place? And so I could have done like a bunch of weird things, like, oh, she replaced Celestia, Celestia and Luna are always changing, so Luna didn't know. I could do a bunch of weird things. I chose the route of the current Celestia, who's pretending to be the changeling pretending to be Celestia, is Chrysalis' sister. Lost 1,000 years ago, when Chrysalis took in a coup, deposed, their mother, and then nearly killed her sister, or thinks she killed her sister. And so Celestia, when she was wounded and totally after fighting Luna, realized that, hey, wait a second, changeling can use love to raise son. I am loved, therefore, and so suddenly you have this idea where for 1,000 years you have a changeling, and it also that click together. So fanfiction, and this is not something that is like you would think of, but it all makes sense. And fanfiction has that sort of flexibility where you can plot all these events and these themes and these and like look at how each character will logically progress through your story based on the backstory you create and how did they logically progress through their backstory. And so that's the same thing I applied with my original story, where I learned basically to combine the theme with the characters, events, and character arcs. So a little more like my original story, Frances, she's an abused kid. So obviously, if I do research into how would she act when she arrives in the original world, in this isekai world, compared to like your normal isekai protagonist. Oh wait, yeah, she's not going to act very well. Yeah, no, she has self-esteem issues. She is not mentally in a good place. And so basically, what does she need? Okay, she needs to have a mentor figure, because she's not going to get anywhere in the story without a mentor figure. Okay, so they have this mentor. She has this mentor figure. This mentor figure is a really cool woman called Dana. They bond, and then I set things up so that the mentor-student relationship pushes Frances' characterization forward, and pushes the story forward toward the theme that I want to, which I would love to review, but that would be spoilers. So yeah. Any final comments, Gary?
Yeah, to kind of sort of bounce off that, starting with a little idea and then expanding it into something bigger, that's exactly how I come up with ideas for stories, both fanfic and original fic. Like, Repercussions, I was like, what if Celestia and Luna had an older brother who was bad, so bad that they had to rise up and overthrow him and then completely purge him from history, but that older brother survived even though he was presumed dead. And that was the prompt for Repercussions. And oddly enough, that almost was the premise for the Pony movie down to the name. If you look up the whole history of the MLP movie that we have, Megan McCarthy's original plot, I think, was there was an evil king named King Cosmos, and he was the elder brother of the Alicorn sisters. And my villain's name was King Cosmo, and I came up with that guy in 2011. Just saying. But for the original fic, I sort of said, okay, what if it takes place in a dream world that has kind of elements from the Matrix and Inception? Like where you believe in yourself more, you gain more powers, like in the Matrix, but at Inception, where it involves like delving deeper into your subconscious and all that stuff with, memories and all that, right? So I create a world with that, but the twist isn't that it's a dream. The protagonist learns it's a dream right away, but what if the twist is that she's actually a transgendered person, and it's her coming to grips with her true identity. So that was the concept for that. And the whole Viking story is the Vikings had their sort of Viking age equivalent in the universe of Equestria. They attacked Equestria. It didn't work because this is right after Hearthswarming, where Equestria unified as one nation. It was a standstill. Celestia sued for peace. It worked. They had sort of an exchange where some of the Vikings would live in Equestria, some of the Equestrians would live in their continent. But part of it was the king of the reindeer wanted the prototype of the weather factory to be transported over there, because it's a very harsh environment, and it would also serve as a defense mechanism as well if they could control the weather. They also worship the Norse gods and, Thor, the god of thunder, so they're like, we can command the power of Thor. Unfortunately, the weather factory goes through a Chernobyl-style meltdown, causes everyone there to die, pony and reindeer alike. And over 1,000 years later, the reindeer are back for revenge. That's the premise. So that's kind of my sort of response to what you just said about how you came up with your works.
Okay, so we're 8:10 right now. Okay, we might have to speed this up a little bit. So we're gonna talk about feedback a bit. Now, feedback is kind of the key reason why, one of the major reasons why fanfiction has such a big advantage over original writing. Because fandom is all about community. The more you interact, the more you get interactions. And so yeah, in fanfiction you basically have a built-in audience, and you get a lot more feedback and just a lot more community in a fandom. Gary?
Precisely. Yeah, I said earlier that original fiction authors are generally jealous of this because they don't have that. They don't have that direct line to their community, and they're not joining a community and gaining eyes from there. They're having to start from nothing, and it's pretty tough.
Yeah, even if you're writing a web serial, like me, who posts. I post 2 chapters every week. I have about 400 subscribers, and yet only 5 comment, 5 to 10 comment. Yeah, about 5 to 10 comment out of my 400 subscribers. So it versus when I was back in Fanfiction, even when I have 100, when I had 100 subscribers, 100 and something subscribers to a story, I would still get 5, 10 comments. You get a significant amount more engagement in response from writing fanfiction or original fiction. I don't know why, mind you. I don't know exactly why. I suspect, one reason I suspect is the fandom often gives you a platform to critique, a common lingo, a language that they understand, and so they respond more. And therefore, a lot of fanfiction comments I've gotten before were oh, you're talking about how I characterize my characters. Oh, I agree with this, or I don't agree with this. And so I get a lot more, and I find that, at least in fanfiction, you can get a lot more feedback about characterization from writing fanfiction than getting original fiction, because people have the canon to compare to and interpret.
Yeah, so, part of it is just the engagement with the characters, because when you first watched Pony, you probably didn't really care about Twilight very much until you'd watched a season or 2, and then you're like, man, I really care about this character and what happens to her. That care is there in some sense, at least, with fanfics about her, as opposed to your original fic, where it's this completely original character, no one knows about this character, no one cares about her, whatever, and you have to build that from scratch. And since it's kind of already done for you, as long as you handle it properly, then you're off to the races. On fanfic. You just need a good premise and a good title and good cover art and good description. There you go.
Yeah. You also mentioned, Gary, that there are a number of very high talented writers in the fandom.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, about that, seriously, there's even at the at the height of the fiction fandom, which is I think it was 20, sort of when fanfiction was founded. There were so many. You would have these stories that would get bursts of 1,000 likes, and you'd be like, okay, just heat. But at the same time, some of these writers were fucking great. Really, good writers. Penstroke. Penstroke isn't he a computer graphics designer? He's the one who wrote Past Sins. And as much as people like to say it's a cliche, it's still a fucking good book. It's one of those really. Okay, well, is my Discord lagging out again?
A little bit.
A little bit. But yeah.
It's been intermittent.
Oh, freaking hell.
Just power through it, man. We're good. It's Discord.
Was it a stream? Hello?
Probably just Discord. I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I think we lost its stream.
Is stream kill?
I don't know. I'm looking at my broadcast, and it looks like a kill. But it doesn't know. Nobody's mentioned anything. What is on your end?
I'm just asking. I'm asking the chat. I'm sure the chat will say something if the stream is dead.
He's the one who wrote.
Stream is working. Okay, so stream is fine.
It's one of those really. But that's weird.
Yeah, you're good,
okay.
man.
I think I should just turn off my flank stage one because it's just my flank stage on my browser because it's giving me false readings, so I'm just gonna turn it off. Okay.
Yeah. I've just been staring at the outline in the chat.
Okay. So. Right. Sorry. So yeah, about the talented writer. About the talented writers. Sorry about that, guys. About the talented writers. Talented writers, like, here's the thing: the talented writers here are like really great. Penstroke, I mentioned him before. Really cool guy, great guy in the comments. These writers are actually really friendly people too, because we're all fanfiction writers. It's like a one big happy community. But like when approaching them, and you can approach them, do be polite. Be understanding that they have lives too, and when like say when you're messaging them, or like especially when you're messaging them about like story feedback and story ideas, it would be very best to ask very specific questions about your concept, and not just like for the love of God, don't ask them to review your story. I've been asked that before. I often have to turn them down. Before I used to be like, I don't know if I want to turn them down or not, but I'm like, they do have lives. We do have lives. We're fanfiction authors, but we do have lives, and so it's hard to like read your writing and then try to give feedback to the level that we want to give you feedback back. And so asking someone just like, oh, here's my story, is it good or not? Please don't.
Occasionally what will happen is one of these writers will see your story, read it for themselves without you asking, and comment on it, and there you go.
Yeah. If you like offer a review exchange, but like they have to be equal, right? You can't ask them to like they have to be equal. Like a review exchange has to be kind of equal. Both sides get something out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Quid pro quo kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's generally polite. But yeah, as Vince said, there are several people who are actual professional writers who are on Fanfiction. I don't know why, but there they are.
Viking is actually, I think. But he self-popped. Oh, well, that counts. Yeah, Viking self-popped. Yeah. He counts.
If you make money for doing it, you're a professional. That's what it literally means. But yeah, there's people like Augie Dog I think Augie Dog's been publishing original fiction since like the 1980s or 1990s or something.
Huh.
And then you've got people like WandererD. He makes he has a Patreon, so he's technically professional with fan fiction, let alone anything else he is involved in. He has a master's in writing. People like Couch Crusader, he has a bachelor's in writing, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Skywriter is an actual professional writer.
He is? He is. Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah, and he's published some absolutely phenomenal work. Like Sun Princess is an amazing short story. I would highly, highly recommend Sun Princess. But have a box of tissues nearby because it is really sad, but oh my goodness, it's good.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I never thought a story about Winona would be that good, but there you go.
So yeah, these guys and girls and them, they're really good people to hang with.
Monochromatic.
But you have to be like, when you want to get, you make sure that the time you spend with them is valuable. So please don't ask ask specific questions that they can answer. Asking general questions, like I know that every time I get asked a general question of is this good or how do you think about this, I'm like
yeah, more precise the better. But yeah, like these are great people, and I'm not just saying this to talk them up or anything. Like I've met most of the who's who of Fanfiction at a con one year or another. I've been going to enough cons that I've met most of these people in person, and they're really fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's also I think we need to keep moving. Building a writing habit and understanding your writing quirks. That's just kind of one of the most important things about writing fanfiction, especially serial fanfiction. What is a writing habit? A writing habit is basically makes you get out every day and you want to write words. And because fanfiction is a serial form of writing and is less formal, you can focus more on understanding and building your writing habit. Like my current serial, Fractured Song, I can somehow, I don't know how, I can write about 6,600 words approximately a week. For 2 updates, each about 3,300 words on average.
That's around 1,000 a day, and normal professional writers write about that much.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 2,000. Pretty sure it's 2,000. I'm pretty sure it's 2,000.
Didn't you say 6,600 a week?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure professional writers more. No, I'm pretty sure professional writers about 2,000 a week.
That's Stephen King.
Oh, that's Stephen
King is very prolific. Yeah. Average professional writer is 1,000. The average serial romance writer, well, it's serial, but the average romance writer is about 10,000 a day. Because category romance is very, very specific and very structured, very copy-pasty kind of in a lot of ways. So once you know the structure of a category romance novel, you can write very, very fast. But non-romance, I'm talking like romance with a capital R. Non-romance, it's like 1,000 a day for normal, average professional writers, 2,000 a day if you're Stephen King.
Yeah, and the good news and how did I do that? You'd be like, wait, how do you do this? And I didn't realize I was at a professional writing level. But anyway, how did I do this? I wrote a lot of serial fan fiction. The drive to need to like plan, plot, and write, that whole cycle, I just honed it by writing my fanfics, which I still cannot believe in those 2 years I wrote about 400,000-ish words.
Writing habits, it's all about your writing process and what works for you. Some people say, okay, I set aside this many hours a day to write, or I will write this many words. I don't care how long it takes me. I will write this many words before I go to bed every day, no matter what. An important thing is you have to guard momentum with your life. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's your birthday, if it's Christmas, you're still going to write. I'm not even kidding. You write literally every single day. No breaks, nothing. I don't care how few hours you slept. If you're having insomnia, what you do? You get up and at 6 a.m. because you haven't fallen asleep because you have insomnia, and you write 1,000 words, then you go to sleep. And then that's 1,000 words less you have to write that day, that type of thing. What worked for me was a combination of writing sprints and sustained writing, where I said, okay, I'll do 3 writing sprints where it's quantity over quality. I'll write side projects with those, and I do 3 of those a day, so that's 1 hour of sprints a day. And then I do 3 hours of sustained writing where it was more quality focused and it was more focused on my main project. On average, I'd get about 3,000 words of main project writing done a day, and then on top of that, the sprints would yield like between 400 and 600 words per sprint. The highest count I got was like 5,000-6,000, I think, in a day. And then I'd average out at about 4.5, and I sustained that for 60 days straight. The only reason I stopped is because I finished my project. Nice. I was done.
Nice.
And you want to find something tenable. That amount is a bit extreme, and it kind of made me go insane toward the end of 60 days, but it's all about building a habit and guarding momentum with your life. That's basically the TLDR of it. It doesn't matter what you're writing. Writing is writing.
Yeah. Like, I'm assisted slightly by the fact that my current job, I'm not going to say what it is, but my current job does allow me to, like, write while I do my job.
That's the dream.
That is the dream.
Really trying to write a lot.
Though it's not, like, honestly, like, the only reason I can get through my job sometimes is, like, I can actually open my document and just add words to it. Call center work is fun. Anyway.
People do that. And it's great. It doesn't matter if you're getting paid or not at that point, because you're working your day job and you're writing.
So okay, we're getting running a little shorter on time, so let's move on to
original topic 3. Yeah,
we're gonna move on to audience management and audience engagement. So basically, fan fiction. You basically, it's a common platform and it's a common topic. We mentioned it before. Easy to engage. Discuss with the audience. Fandoms tend to bring a similar-minded people together. You can really, and here's the interesting thing. And I've seen this particularly in the author of The Bridge, a Godzilla MLP crossover. It has basically the author, Dr. Tartano. He built this amazing Discord community, story group. Like, he just basically engaged with his audience and managed his Discord group. And he has they do streams, they do movie streams, they talk. He doesn't update his story. He updates his story fairly regularly, but like usually like huge updates, but they take a while to get out. But everybody just waits for him anyway because they have this community of people that he interacts with, and he's done a fantastic job just building this really friendly group of people who are like helping each other out and just like to hang out and talk about like Godzilla and MLP. Yeah, I know. It wouldn't be the first thing you talk about, but yeah, the Bridges Godzilla / MLP crossover community is just great. Like I frequent there. When I can. I just like to hang and chat sometimes. But yeah, basically, in fandoms you can really learn about how to manage build that community in your world, and yeah, pretty much. Oh, and also, when you get because in fan fiction you get more feedback from your your audience, which means you can respond to criticism more. And so fanfiction is a very good way to interact with your audience and practice how to write good comments to them. I've learned a lot about writing comments to my fans, which I apply to my current web serial, because I've had to deal with a lot of comments when I was writing my fanfiction. And so now when people go like, "You suck, Vren," I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard that before." So, and then I know how to explain my point of view to things, people in a neutral way that explains, okay, no, I see why you interpret it this way, and I understand that. This is why I wrote it this way. Here you go. Oh, take it. This is why I decided I made this decision. I understand where you're coming from, but this is what I was thinking about. So I learned how to respond to things.
Bear with me. Sometimes it's a case of, look, I've got this planned out. Just bear with me. If it doesn't work, then you can come after me. But yeah, as I've said earlier, like, negative feedback's better than no feedback at all. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have people say, "Oh, I didn't like it because of X," than nothing, because that means at least you elicited some type of reaction. Yeah, we definitely do need to get moving, though. We've got half an hour left, I would say.
Right. Okay.
We still have a decent amount of ground to cover.
Okay. Now.
It's a broader topic than we thought, which is common with writing panels.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking at my stream chat messages, and I just noticed the thing that you responded. I did. Anyway. So yeah. Anyway. Also, here's a negative example. Like a negative example that I learned about managing my audience / responding to feedback. So you think that I wrote this. Princess Celestia: The Changing Queen. I mentioned it already a lot. Basically, I wrote a sequel to it. The sequel sort of split my fan base, and I did not do very well to manage it at all. I kind of dug my heels in. Like, part of this was because I had a co-author at the time. We were both fairly convinced that we were right, but then when I look back at it, I'm like, "Oh no, Vren, you really done goofed on that one." Like, not that it was like I made every mistake that my critics made, but I probably should have paused there, reevaluate the situation, try to talk to my co-author, and then we come around to try a different approach to it, because people were starting to riot. And that experience taught me that maybe it's a good idea to dig in your heels sometimes, but sometimes it's not a good idea to dig in your heels. And that's one of the times when I wish I didn't dig in my heels so hard, because I kind of regret that. I kind of regret some of those decisions. I mean, I don't regret finishing the story how it ended, but I just regret certain decisions I made. So yeah. Yeah,
it can be rough. Ultimately, the last thing we should probably say on this topic: never delete comments. Just don't. If it's so bad that it violates fanfic's rules, the staff will take care of it. Don't delete your own comments. It looks bad. When I see a story with 90% of the comments deleted except the positive ones, it's like, okay, yeah, this is basically just astroturfing, and the author just can't handle criticism. And I will not read it.
Yeah,
unless I do it to sort of see, how bad is this train wreck? Let's take a look. Mm-hmm. Which is not what you want your audience to think going into your story, and that's the impression you're going to create. So don't delete your comments.
So in the last 12 minutes of the panel, because I think we'll get 20 minutes of Q&A.
If we can, we'll try.
We'll try.
We have a lot to go through.
That's true. Okay, so basically, when do you get into original fiction from fan fiction? So for me, it's basically when you write ideas. I kind of ran out of ideas, fanfiction ideas, I want to write with fanfiction, and had some really fun original ideas. It also kind of depends on my priorities. I realized at a certain point in time, I'm like, yeah, I like writing fanfiction, but I really, really, really want to put a book out there that's original fiction. And I'm fairly confident that I can do it, based on the stuff I've done in fanfiction. Of course, my confidence was somewhat misplaced. I realized I have still a lot to learn, but I definitely had more confidence to put my work out there and let people judge it. And some people, 445 people think it's 480 people-ish, something like that, think it's good. So yeah.
That's 1/10 of a bestseller. In Canada, if you sell 5,000 copies of a book, you're a bestseller.
Well, they're subscribed, so I don't know if they're actually, I don't know if I sold the book to
You know
them.
what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Look, just give it to me, okay? For me, it's kind of an echo of what Vince said. It's basically, I write what I want to write, and the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, he said that truth is subjectivity, and part of that, what he meant by that is, if you're hungry, and you know you're hungry, there's no greater truth than that. No matter what anyone tells you, oh, you just ate half an hour ago, or you shouldn't be hungry because it's this time of day, it doesn't matter. You're hungry, and there's no higher truth than that. And when you're ready to write fanfic, or original fic rather, you'll know, and that's when you make the switch. Mm-hmm. Don't listen to anything else, just listen to yourself.
Yeah.
You will know.
Okay, so how do we get into original writing from fanfiction? Okay, here's some options, and here's some pitfalls to avoid. Now, the option I'm going to be talking about the most, because it's the one that has, I'm going to be talking about this one the most because I know this the most. And I'm also experiencing it right now. We're going to talk about web serial and web serial fiction. And basically, here's some common misconceptions that I'm going to quickly debunk so that you understand what this is all about, actually. Like, first of all, the idea that all web fiction is bad is bullshit. It's actually bullshit. Like, no, not all web fiction is bad. There are some extremely high-quality web fictions I've read out there, and they're like, and you wonder why aren't they published? Well, they are on the way to be published. They're just serializing it first, and then to build an audience, and then they're going to publish it and take it down later. And also, now you'll be thinking, you might have heard this. Self-publish does not mean, you might have heard like self-publish is a bad book. Like, if you self-publish it, you're not a good writer. You just couldn't make it traditional. Well, no, that's bullshit, because, just because you self-publish it does not mean you couldn't get published traditional publishing. Self-publishers can make a lot of money. Okay, consider the fact that 50 Shades of Grey was originally a self-published book. And then you realize that self-published books do not mean they make no money, and do not mean that, they couldn't get published in traditional publishing. You may look at it.
Yeah, exactly. You may look at it and say, like, oh, the self-published book's what, $5 versus $20 for a normal book. But when you look at a normal book, you realize, like, out of $20, that the author's seeing about $1.80 of that.
Pretty much.
I'm not exaggerating. That's literally it.
Yeah, no.
Whereas with a self-published book, you'll see like 90% of whatever it is, maybe, or whatever, depending on what platform you use.
Well, actually, it is yeah, 90% of it, yeah, because the rest of it goes to the author, though the author does bear the cost, and I'll get to that later, but basically,
yeah, you
can find a place for original content in web fiction. The author I'm most familiar with, because I hang out in her Discord group, is, her name is Inorai. Basically, she's a full-time self-published writer who serializes her work and then self-publishes it. She's not a can't get published in traditional publishing person. She is full-time writing her freaking, basically doing the dream. And it's like, and she's doing this, and she hasn't like had to ever traditionally publish it. She self-published it. There you go. You can, you can make a living and doing self-publishing, and also and now of course you'd be like thinking, okay, but I'm putting my work on the web. Doesn't it mean someone's going to steal it and pass it off as their own? Well, no. Think because most, and this is the hard truth, most web serials barely see 100 views on their page. Even on some of the popular sites seen, they barely see 100 views on this site, on their page, on the first chapter. Hell, but nobody's gonna steal your first draft web fiction or your second draft web fiction because they don't know they're gonna make profit off of you. People pirate stuff that is of value, like movies or published books, not because they won't pirate your web fiction. No, and so there's a lot of advantages to publishing web fiction. You can build your audience. You can write a web serial, and you can practice that, build an audience interested in reviewing your book before you put it to Amazon, which is like super important. The early reviews you get on Amazon, apparently, they basically determine how much books you're going to sell once you self-publish your book. So that's why serializing your work and then taking it down and self-publishing it is like critical, because you have that audience who's like, yeah, I've read this book. It was pretty damn good. Good. You can also get ongoing feedback in the web serial, because people read your work and they react to it, and you get feedback that can fine-tune to it. Now, here's a note though, and we'll get back to this as Gary explains about traditional publishing. But basically, if you publish your fiction as an online serial web fiction, you cannot get traditionally published. Once you publish your work as an online serial, you just cannot publish as web, as you cannot get published with a traditional publisher. This is the reason why is traditional publishers want the full rights to your book. They want everything, because they want to choose how to market it, they want to choose how to audience it, they want to choose how to categorize it. They want it all. And the people, like, you obviously might have heard people who are like, oh, what? I published this as web fiction, and then I got picked up by a traditional publisher. Well, yeah, that happens. But they're unicorns. The most famous example I can think of is Sarah Maas, who wrote the Throne of Glass young adult series. Yeah, she published hers as a web novel, and then got picked up by a publisher. But that's a unicorn. That's like, it happens once to like, I can't count. Basically, it doesn't actually happen. Yes, it happened before, but it happened on such a reduced case basis that you basically don't, there's no point. Once you publish online, consider yourself not being able to get traditionally published, because once you publish online, they're not going to pick it up. They're just not.
As we said, what we're saying is more applicable to the majority of cases, but I guarantee that if you do some digging, you'll find a counterexample to absolutely everything we said in this panel, and that's kind of the general disclaimer for all writing panels.
Yeah.
That's just how it is with
other tips, and I'm going to speedrun this. Cases. And I'll speedrun this really quickly. Basically, in web fiction, as is with fan fiction, your cover art is important, your blurbs are super important, and don't just agree to stick your novel on the first web novel publishing site you think of. Each web novel publishing platform has particular quirks. I use WandererD and Reddit serials. I've heard some sites actually do try to steal your work by basically like they copyright your work and therefore you can't actually publish it anywhere else, which is bullshit, and you really don't want to have those. Yeah, do some research, do some looking into things, listen to the forums, because people will share this online. And yeah, it's also exponentially harder to write your original fiction than fan fiction and to get published there. So don't be worried if you're like a fan fiction writer with like 100 views, get like a bunch of ratings on your first novel, and then when you write the original fiction, it's like, I got nothing. Well, no, that's natural. You're writing fan fiction versus original fiction. It's gonna be different.
Yeah.
I mentioned this already, but Reddit serials and WandererD are probably the two potential sites I would suggest to push original writing. I say potential because I love them and I love them to death. But again, do your research first. I love them to death, but you might not like them as much. And I will go on to them more. I'll post them in the chat, and you can check them out, because we need to talk about traditional publishing.
So this is where I come in. While I haven't been traditionally published, the thing is, I've taken classes in publishing, professional editing. I've worked with many people who have been, and a lot of this basically comes from sort of, this is what you're in for when you're going for traditional publishing. So what happens is, TLDR, it's extremely hard. What happens is, unlike writing fan fiction where you post a chapter, you write a chapter, you maybe look it over and polish it up a little bit, then you put it on Fimfic. It's, you write your entire manuscript, you rewrite it, maybe then rewrite it several more times, then you pay a professional editor to give it a proper treatment, then you start shipping it off. Not to a publishing house in most cases. You generally try and find an agent, because at this point you most likely don't have one. And what you have to do is sort of say, okay, I'm from Canada, so I'm going to look for Canadian agents who are seeking solicitations for manuscripts. And then you have to see, okay, what does this agent work with? Like, what type of genre do they work with? What type of authors do they want to work with? And you have to do a lot of research to pick out the agents who you'd actually want to query. And then you'd have to figure out, okay, what type of query letters do I send? And how much of the manuscript do I send with them? All this sort of thing. So it's a long process, and if the agent eventually sort of says, yes, I will represent you, which is hard to do, then you have to ship your manuscript off to publishing houses. And that's really hard. But say you get accepted to a publishing house. Depending on what publishing house it is, this will vary, because they'll do all this marketing stuff for you. As Vince said, though, if you publish it self-published, most likely the publishing house won't want anything to do with it because it's no longer new. So keep that in mind. If you self-publish it, that's it. You can't get traditionally published in most cases. What they'll do is they'll sort of say, here's a contract, here's an advance. What is an advance? Like, say it's about, for a first-time author, $5,000 is probably about average. They'll give you a deadline to get a second draft, or a final draft done, rather, and their in-house editor will work with you and say, this is what I recommend for it, da-da-da-da. It's a really lengthy thing. They give you like a script treatment, all that sort of thing. I can't go into too much detail about this because I took literally an entire class based on this over a semester, so it's really hard to condense it into like 5 minutes. But they'll go through that, and then you'll have a deadline because they want to publish stuff in certain seasons. What they think will be popular is really important. So if you try and write something that's popular, like say I want to write vampire fiction, by the time you actually get your manuscript over to that publisher who's been publishing a lot of vampire stories, it's probably fallen out of favor at that point. And there's no real point in trying to capture zeitgeist like that, because writing a novel manuscript is really lengthy. Anyway, at that point, they'll say, all right, say we're going to sell your book for $20 a unit. You get 10% of that, which is about average, because the bulk of the cost is actually the cost it takes to produce the book, so the publisher doesn't get too much. And the agent gets 10% of what you make. So that's why it's good to have agents, because they will fight to get you as much money as possible, because their fee is 10% of what you make from when you sell your manuscript. So it's in their best interest to get you the best deal possible. But these $1.80 installments every time a book is sold counts against your $5,000 advance. And 7 or 8 out of 10 books don't even earn out their advance. And then after that, you make royalties. And if you break certain thresholds and units sold, your cut might go up to 12.5% or 15% in royalties. And then you make money from there. You get paychecks based on how many units are sold, which is completely random. And if it's still in print or what have you. I think that's kind of the quick and dirty of traditional publishing. There's a lot more that goes into it. Mm-hmm. Trust me, it's a very big topic, but
and there's just as much
it's kind of what you expect.
Just as much as
it's a different animal. Like, you don't have to do as much marketing. Like, yes, you're going to be given like book tours, and you're going to have to sort of promote yourself and do all that sort of thing. But the publishing house does a lot of that for you, and helps you out a lot with it. With self-publishing, it's all on you.
Yeah, you take all the risk. You do your cover. You choose your cover. You choose all. You make all the decision, which is nice, but hard. But hard, and also like traditional publishing, your first book is likely going to not actually make you money, or not that much money. Not with all the effort you put in. Like, from what I've heard from self-publishing, the only reason how self-publishers make money is because they have a catalog of books that people all buy, and you sort of create a brand, an audience brand that likes what you write and knows what to expect. Every year once you put a book out, they're like, oh, I like the Vren book. Next Vren book? Oh, what's that? And so you create a brand through that way. But then that's like in the process of years. And I'm just in the process of like writing finishing my first web serial, which is going to be 2 books because 1 book is way too long. Anyway, moving on, because we are running the hell out of time. Intertextuality.
This is why I say, before we move on, this is why I say write what you want to write. Don't feel, oh, I have to work on original fiction now, because you're not writing because you want to make money. Because there is almost never money in writing, unless you get really, really lucky. Mm. Very rarely.
Yeah.
You do what you want to do and because you enjoy it. But because if you want to make money for, why not just work at McDonald's? Because it's a steady income. It requires a fraction of the skill, and you're going to make more money doing it per hour than you are writing.
Yeah.
Just straight up, in most cases, unless you're writing on commission.
Yes.
Which is, you got to fight for every commission. But intertextuality versus original fiction. This is a topic that could cover multiple courses at a university level. So I apologize that I'm not going to do this too much justice. But I want to bring this up because I feel it's really pertinent, because look at Marvel's Thor. Is that fan fiction? Yes and no. It is fan fiction because it's basically the same idea as fan fiction. You're taking someone else's character, someone else's setting and whatever, and doing your own thing with it. You know, they use Thor, they use Odin, they use all these Norse gods, but they sort of said, okay, they're aliens now, and they're in the, you know, modern human universe and all that sort of thing. The reason it's not fan fiction is because Snorri Sturluson, who is the Icelandic scholar who wrote the Prose Edda, for those who don't know, he didn't think of copywriting it because in the 13th century, copyright laws didn't exist. And you can just freely do that. That is the difference, in my opinion, between fan fiction and original fiction in a lot of senses where you are writing something like that. When it comes to intertextuality, I assume most people are familiar, at least in principle, with Homer's The Odyssey, which, you know, Odysseus is trying to get back to his home after the War of Troy. There's this book called Cold Mountain, which is the Odyssey, but it's set in the backdrop of the American Civil War. And this guy, he's fighting in the Civil War. He's trying to get back to his home, and he goes on an Odyssey-like journey. All the serial numbers are filed off, so there's no Odysseus, there's no Cyclops, there's no Greek gods, there's none of that. But it's the same story structure as the Odyssey in a lot of senses, and it is the Odyssey just retold. That is intertextuality, because it interacts with the text of the Odyssey, but it's retold in a modern, in a more modern sense. Mm-hmm. So one other way to sort of interpret intertextuality is, this is more pertinent to our discussion here. Let's say you want to write about the Canterlot wedding. And so what do? You break down the episodes and sort of say, okay, this is what it is beat by beat. And you get more and more vague. So it's like, okay, magical prodigy's older brother is set to wed her former babysitter, but it turns out her former babysitter in the intervening 15 years since they last met has turned into not that great of a person, and she feels something's wrong, and she does investigations. She thinks she's evil and trying to overthrow the kingdom, but she can't prove it. No one believes her. But then it turns out that it was a shape-shifting queen in disguise who was trying to usurp the kingdom to take it over. And then you could even twist it by saying, all right, I'll tell it from Chrysalis's perspective. And why is she doing it? Well, maybe her kingdom of shapeshifters they're facing starvation because they've depleted their natural resources over some type of mismanagement or misfarming or something, to the point where it's either conquer Canterlot or the equivalent of Canterlot in your original fiction TM, or face their own extinction. And suddenly you have intertextuality with the MLP universe, because your story shares, like your book shares the same beats as the Canterlot wedding, but it doesn't resemble it in any other way. And it also has your spin on it and like a commentary on climate change, which is extremely relevant to us today. Mm. And that's kind of what I mean. And that's kind of like doing both. You're writing fan fiction, but you're not at the same time, and you're doing intertextuality, putting your own creative spin on it. Because ultimately, I think the notion of fan fiction is kind of absurd, because it only exists because of copyright laws, and it's sort of a label that's meant to kind of class it as this lesser form of writing. And that's just false, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a lot of bad fan fiction out there because there's no standard most of the time for publishing, but it's like that with traditional publishing too. But there's just the filters in place, so you only see the stuff that's been through the rigorous filtration system. But there's still just as much bad writing in original fic as there is in fan fiction. Oh my God. And fan fiction is fantastic. It's existed in forms, just not officially called fan fiction, for thousands of years. Yeah. Because that's how human beings told stories. I mean, Homer didn't write the Odyssey, he just wrote it down. It existed for hundreds of years before Homer. So yeah, that's just something to think of. And writing is writing to me. And whether or not you can make money off it is based on, the draconian copyright laws, but there are ways around it.
Yeah, or if you want to, you can even just pick what's your favorite classic novel. I mean, mine would probably be Romance of the Three Kingdoms, because I'm Chinese. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is one of my favorites. People keep calling it the Chinese Game of Thrones. I'm like, we predate you by 2,000 years. Anyway, but yeah, choose one of your favorite one of your favorite stories? How does it inspire you? Maybe you want to do that. You follow it closely. Maybe you took one idea or one aspect of it and you change something up. Go for it. It's not copyrighted. Yeah. Anyway, because this is we meant to do like a 30-minute question period, but we had we talked a lot about stuff because the topic was big. No, sorry about that. Yeah, so we have 10 minutes questions. Please feel free to ask in Discord. And we're watching it now, and we will answer them. Yeah, we will answer any question you have, and I will start trying to make the notes available. Now, give me a second to make the notes available.
Just refer to my comments on the first page.
Which comment on the first page?
Of this before you make.
Oh, yep, making that. Yep, definitely deleting that. I think there's nothing, but nothing other than that. I think we're good.
Yeah.
We'll wait for comment. We'll wait for questions, which I hope.
Yeah, I believe it. I hope you guys have questions for us.
Yeah, we went through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, apologies. I'm more used to in-person panels. Like online panels is tough because I don't have my co-panelists there to sort of play off in the same way. It's just sort of whatever Discord decides to do, and sometimes it lags. Sometimes there's stream. There's no live. It's a big difference. I've done a couple online panels, but it's COVID. We got to do what we can. We got to be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is, and. It's great. We're able to enjoy this convention regardless of, race, class, or creed, or borders, or social distancing restrictions. We're all here. We just have to connect online, which everyone has. And it's really nice. And because the Pony universe, right, it's something positive. And there's a lot of negativity in the world, especially in the past 12 months. So it's very, very nice that we have something positive that just brings us together. And we have this in common, that we like the series, we like the positive messages it brings, and we can be together in that, especially with what happened over the past few days. So
God,
I'm really grateful to be here and for everyone to be here. I'm not going to say any more of that. I don't want to dredge up anything. But,
so that's my serial. Gary, do you got anything? Do you want to promote? Let people know that you wrote.
Just my Fanfiction. You already posted that.
Yeah, so that's my original series that I kept referring to.
I'm also...
Yeah.
Check it out. I'm also available on Discord.
Yep, we're also available on Discord.
That I use for everything.
Yep, just ping me. Yeah.
I've been on Fanfic for a while. I've been busy with things, but hope to get back. That was a very nice post by Prodigy. I'm not sure if they can hear us.
Did he?
Or if the chat can.
Oh,
sound is back. Hey, save. Thank you. Yay, we're live.
Yeah.
That's a very nice comment, Prodigy. I really appreciate it. It is a labor of love, because with fanfiction, unless, again, you have a Patreon or you're working on commission, and in, our case, no, not for those stories anyway. Yeah, it is a labor of love, because that's what we get.
Yep.
We get satisfaction of entertaining people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really nice
improving
comment. Yeah. I mean, still, like, when people still comment my story, on my fanfiction, like, I still appreciate it. It's just, it's weird. It's kind of weird because it's been so long, but I still appreciate when people comment or read my fanfiction and say they enjoy it. So, yeah.
I haven't published anything in a while, but I get happy when I see a notification on Fanfic with that.
Anyway, since clearly we are losing... let's wait for a little bit to see if there's any more questions.
Yeah, see if we can answer a question or two. We have a couple more minutes. We're going to end a slight bit early because...
they're asking us
to make sure we're...
Yeah. I think OB...
they've got another panel to run.
Yep, that makes sense. So we will stop. And
at least we don't have to vacate the room half an hour early.
Oh,
we don't have to transition